from your trusted local news source with your first alert forecast. KCRG TV 9 News at 10 starts now.
Tonight, people are looking to recover after several tornadoes struck eastern Iowa. We have First Alert Storm Team coverage, but first, take a look at this. You are looking at video from our Solon City Cam as it captured live pictures of what appears to be a tornado ripping through the city. And tonight, residents in Solon aren't the only ones picking up the pieces.
Delaware County opened a shelter earlier tonight. It was open for a few hours due to the storm damage in Manchester for people to seek refuge. There's also a shelter open in the community of Hills. It's at the community center south of Iowa City, again because of storm damage. The storms devastated people's homes and businesses there in Hills. And this is video as a tornado approached Wellman. You can see it spinning off in the distance as large tornadoes on the ground there. We've taken reports from viewers of damage southwest of Wellman where homes were destroyed.
Seeing it over and over again, and more than 26,000 people across the state of Iowa right now have no power. The vast majority of those are in eastern Iowa, Grundy, Delaware, Van Buren counties having the most outages compared to other nearby counties after this storm. Now, Johnson County's emergency management says it is responding to the damage caused by all these tornadoes today.
And we're starting our coverage in Johnson County in the community of Solon, where KCRG TV 9's Becky Phelps joins us live. Becky?
Thankfully, no one was injured when this tree behind me fell and hit a home during today's storms in Solon. The family who lives in this home tells me they were in the cellar during all of the storms and couldn't tell what had happened until they came up and looked around. Now the tree was ripped up by its roots and fell into the side of the house here, hitting into the garage and kind of cutting through the side of the house here. You can see the view from inside. Earlier today, branches just hanging into the garage, insulation everywhere, covering the floor, the cars in the driveway. The storm also sucked the garage door off of the house, leaving it sitting in the front yard. Everyone I've talked to today in Solon says the storm felt like it moved through quickly. I talked with one woman who rode out the storm with her father in his basement before coming home and seeing what her neighborhood looked like.
After the storm was over, I went to walk home and I saw a big pile of cedar trees, and I was like, well, those must have come off of the other neighbor's tree. And lo and behold, I get to my house and I find out that it had just fallen behind my bus and did not hit the bus, but they were actually my trees that the limbs had been pulled.
In downtown Solon, two businesses, a hardware store and a Mexican restaurant, had significant damage to their roofs, with parts literally flying away. Those businesses are blocked off by caution tape tonight. Part of the debris landed behind the businesses, and the work to clean all of that damage up got started very quickly. City crews and first responders were all across Solon today working very hard to help people identify the damage and clean up tree debris off of roads and sidewalks. Everyone we talked to said they were very grateful to live here in this community with that support. Live in Solon, Becky Phelps, KCRG TV 9 News.
And this is drone video from Tipton in Cedar County. You can see some damage to homes and trees in this particular neighborhood. Some homes even had part of their roofs that were torn off. The good news is that time and time we have not heard of any serious injuries, and that's a key part to this story.
Yeah, and no fatalities. Given how many tornadoes were pushing through eastern Iowa one time, we know that can happen. So in the community of Hills, an emergency shelter has been set up for families who have nowhere else to go. That's where we find KCRG TV 9's Brian Tabak reporting for us live. Brian?
Yeah, Beth, not a lot of families utilizing the community center, though. The mayor does tell me there are a couple dozen people whose homes are uninhabitable tonight. In the town of Hills, just off Old 218, families are in cleanup mode after the storm left debris thrown across yards, insulation covering lawns, and twisted metal siding thrown across structures.
It's heartbreaking, but stuff's replaceable and everybody's healthy, and so that's what's great.
Kyle Schneider was at his father's house when the storm rolled through. This is what he came home to. A wall torn from the side of his house.
Oh, you can't live in that thing. The structure's not stable underneath that house, so.
Schneider's home is too damaged to live in tonight. His plan is to take his family to his father's. Others walk the block looking for irreplaceable memories.
There's so much of pictures of families and all their belongings.
They're
They're our friends. Some of them are her like grandson, and like some from her in like high school. So like they're pretty important.
The damage from this storm is fresh in the minds of those like Schneider who live here, but they're just thankful for friends and family ready to help a lending hand in his family's time of need.
When you see your house damaged and stuff, and they're the first ones there when you call.
The mayor of Hills tells me that he has requested some extra Johnson County Sheriff's deputies to kind of watch over that area just off that old 218 cleanup. That starts tomorrow. The mayor tells me that they've requested dumpsters and dump trucks. They're still working on a plan of where they're going to put those at this time. Live in Hills, Brian Tabbitt, KCRG TV9 News.
All right, thank you, Brian. Delaware County Emergency Management opened a shelter for a few hours this evening due to storm damage. It is now closed, though. Emergency Management says a suspected tornado caused extensive damage throughout Manchester. Ken Gracie sent us these photos after waiting out the storm at a gas station in Manchester, and he says winds threw barns into ditches and destroyed sheds and power poles.
Well, you can hear them just snapping. It just sounded like a twig, you know, just like if you took a twig and just snapped it across your nail, it was snap, snap, snap. And next thing you know, all those power lines just went down.
He says he saw power poles down for more than a quarter of a mile. Delaware County Emergency Management saying as of this time, there are no reported injuries there. Our first alert weather coverage continues in Coralville tonight. Many businesses, hotels, and homes along Highway 6 are still without power right now.
Yeah, right there on the Coralville Strip. KCRG TV9's Libby Randall continues our live team coverage. She shares more from two business owners who were just yards away from the most severe damage.
Along Highway 6 in Coralville, many businesses like the ones behind me are seemingly untouched. But if you take several steps in the opposite direction, you can see how much damage this storm really did. A tornado split this group of businesses along Highway 6 in half as it made its way through Coralville. Debris from some of those places are strung out across the street. Power lines and power poles cover the train tracks that run alongside US 6. The owners of Miro, Martial Arts, and Accurate Home Inspections, both located in that same building, are beyond relieved, as the only thing they lost was power.
I just closed on the business on Monday, and so I just bought it. So, yeah, I mean, I've been here 15 years, and it's just like I'm looking at the devastation of other businesses, and I'm feeling like really, really blessed.
I wasn't sure what to expect with that tornado that touched down. I thought maybe it was going to be a lot more disastrous than what it is right now. I do feel for this side of the building, though, the owners over here, though, with the damage they have.
Several of those business owners tell us the Iowa Department of Transportation, Coralville Law Enforcement, and Mid-American Energy crews are working to bring back power as early as Saturday morning. In Coralville, Libby Randall, KCRG TV9 News.
And just about an hour ago, a shelter opened in Coralville. The Red Cross is operating that shelter at the Coralville Recreation Center. That's on 8th Street. And there will be cots, blankets, as well as food for anyone who needs it from the storm. And once those storms passed, it was almost eerily calm. We even saw rainbows and blue skies in some areas.
And it was absolutely amazing how quickly those storms did pass through. I mean, you saw the video in Seoul, and it was like, what, 90 seconds of intensity.
If that. Yeah, absolutely. Luckily, they did move on quickly between about 2 and 7. That's about what you were expecting from the western edge of the viewing area to the eastern. Now they're long gone. Let's look at a review of what happened this afternoon on pinpoint Doppler radar. See, starting at about 1 o'clock as it loops back. Storms developed in south central Iowa, spread to the northeast. That was the first wave, and a second wave developed on its backside, pushing to the northeast from there. They continue to push east now. In fact, the front and its associated storms in central Indiana. That one storm that passed from near Ottumwa up through Johnson County into southeastern Lynn and western Jones County, that's the one that produced the most serious tornadoes we saw all day. In fact, here's a radar representation of where the rotation passed. So that's a generic path of where what may have very well been one tornado for a good portion of it before lifting and probably producing a couple more before that storm started to get absorbed into the greater line. So it was a pretty active afternoon. In fact, as you see all those tornado reports associated with that storm stretching from Wapello County up into northern Washington County, other reports in Poweshiek County, and plenty of reports across all of the state of Iowa, at least 178 at latest count, and we will still add some more to this. The good news is now is that things have quieted down, at least in terms of the weather and precipitation and storm activity. Winds are still very strong, gusting out of the west between 31 miles per hour and Dubuque, 14 miles per hour in Washington. We're going to keep those strong westerly winds around for at least a little bit longer. Temperatures tonight will be dipping into the low to mid 30s. You can scratch those scattered storms for the Zonecast, though. Instead, we have the potential for scattered snow showers. We'll take a look at who's most in line to see some snow overnight coming up in a bit.
Well, as you've seen, there's been plenty of activity going on here through the afternoon. Let's take a look at more of some of those damage photos that you guys have sent in. Thank you for sending those in on our U News channel there. Again, some storm damage in Manchester. We've seen that picture, several of pictures coming in from the Manchester area for us here as we've gone through the afternoon with that cell up there. Also, wind damage coming in. Julia sent in this picture near the Wellsburg area. Probably not associated with any tornadic activity, but just wind damage in that grain bin being blown over and kind of collapsing in on itself. Near the Martinsburg area, this kind of as that storm was just getting going, you can see that hog confinement, substantial damage to that. That picture sent in by Lori. Trevor sent in this picture from the Wellman area. Again, a lot of damage in the Wellman area. Those trees, those cars kind of crumpled up. A classic signature there that we'd see. That tornado video coming in near Wellman as well from Richard. Again, very powerful storm. And another tornado video coming in near Kyoto where you can see both of those tornadoes moving through the area. Tipton as well, seeing a lot of damage. Remember, you can still send in your pictures to us on kcrg.com/unews.
Jan, thanks so much. And parts of Arkansas saw storms earlier than Iowa did today. This is a look, a video at a pretty substantial tornado in Little Rock that killed 3 people and hurt dozens others. The National Weather Service called it catastrophic and had to send its own North Little Rock staff into a tornado shelter.
Everything happened in like 5 seconds. It was like it came, boom. It was you hear a lot of commotion and stuff. Then it was just over.
The man describing in Little Rock what happened today with that storm. This is damage from the tornado. You can see debris scattered and buildings heavily damaged in this video. The tornado even ripped off the roofs of some businesses.
Also tonight, right now, the Iowa women are going head-to-head with South Carolina in their Final Four matchup for the NCAA tournament. Tip-off is at 8:50 tonight, and the score right now, 59-55. Good guys, right? KCRG TV9 Scott Zabel and Jack Leto are in Dallas tonight with more on the big matchup, guys.
Welcome to Dallas, and what a game so far. The Hawkeyes giving the #1 team in the country all they can handle. They got off to a great start, Jack.
Yeah, they did, and as a Hawkeye fan, if you're a Hawkeye fan, you got to be really nervous. Look, it's great that the Hawkeyes got off to a great start. They played their game on offense. That means pick and roll with Caitlin Clark and Monica Zanano have been great passing, great shooting. The problem for Iowa is on the defensive end, they're just giving up too many offensive rebounds.
It's rebounding. That's going to continue to be a problem, so they're probably going to have to outscore them. It worked, the layup drill, and it was a layup drill for Caitlin Clark in the first half, but I think they're going to adjust their defense, and she's going to have to hit some more threes, and other players for Iowa are going to have to hit from the outside.
It's going to be huge to draw up those plays to get those open shooters shots. For my money, Dawn Staley is the best coach in college basketball. Lisa Bluter is right up there with her. If Lisa Bluter can draw up a game plan to get the Hawks in front, get them open shooters, I think she might take that crown. It's going to be a great ending.
And how about the crowd support? A lot of Iowa fans.
A lot of Iowa fans. Exactly.
Awesome.
We've seen them all week. They've been incredible. If the Iowa Hawkeyes win the game, it's going to be largely thanks to the home-like crowd that they've gotten.
All right, let's hope for a big second half from Iowa. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks so much. Well, coming up, President Donald Trump says he will be turning himself into authorities to make his first court appearance as he reportedly now faces dozens of criminal charges.
The severe weather we saw earlier today now pushing into Indiana and Ohio. Blizzard warnings off to the northwest side of this large storm system as it exits. We'll show you when the snow can move through eastern Iowa coming up in your first alert forecast. Stay with your trusted local news source, KCRG TV 9.
We now know former President Donald Trump will make his first court appearance in connection to a hush money investigation next week. This comes after a New York grand jury voted to indict the former president yesterday.
It makes former President Trump the first ex-president in U.S. history to face criminal charges. The Manhattan DA's office launched an investigation after investigators say that Trump paid to keep adult film actress Stormy Daniels quiet about their alleged relationship.
This is unprecedented in this country's history. I don't know what to expect other than an arraignment.
Trump's attorney saying Trump and his whole legal team were caught off guard by the announcement. That's despite the former president falsely predicting his own arrest in the case last week. He says Trump plans to plead not guilty and will aggressively fight the charges. The indictment is under seal, but sources tell ABC News he faces about 24 counts, including felonies. Former Vice President Mike Pence is putting a new emphasis on his years in politics before he served as Donald Trump's vice president. It comes as he approaches a likely 2024 run for president. Pence served 12 years in Congress, 4 years as Indiana governor. He also reacted to Trump's indictment, calling it political prosecution.
Now, your first alert forecast with meteorologist Corey Thompson.
This video was from today's storms, which produced several tornadoes, including this near Keota. This is a video of it as it was approaching the town. You can see folks watching from a distance. Viewers reached out to us saying that there were homes damaged in the area. The Iowa DOT even showed that Iowa Highway 92 in the area was closed due to debris blocking the roadway. That's all part of that one storm that produced a long-tracked tornado this afternoon, across a good portion of the area as it lifted to the northeast. Fortunately, though, in eastern Iowa, we are currently dry. Most of the state showing not much in the way of precipitation, but notice how the precipitation is still swirling around an area of low pressure. Snow showers back into Nebraska, widespread moderate to heavy snow in Minnesota and Wisconsin as the storm moves away. Again, right now, though, it's quiet. Temperatures are continuing to fall from what the very lofty highs they reached today. Upper 30s to low 40s at this hour. Winds out of the west generally between about 15 to 30 miles per hour, with some higher gusts. For that reason, a wind advisory is in effect for the area shaded in this tan color. Most of areas south of Highway 20 goes until about midday tomorrow, when that will be allowed to expire. So there's the chance for a little bit of light snow activity tonight. Snow showers possible across parts of the area. Then the wind just sticks around. We're likely to see it through a good portion of the afternoon tomorrow as well. Talking about snow, we could see a little bit that sticks in the far northwestern counties where winter weather advisory, believe it or not, is in effect, stretching across Charles City and Decorah. The amounts will be light, but with the wind that we have and the snow that could fall, visibility really could be reduced. So I think that's why the Weather Service went with that advisory, just to emphasize that just a bit. So by 1 o'clock, notice how snow is starting to edge into that far northwestern portion of the area. 3 o'clock, spreading a little bit further to the south and east, and then continuing in a scattered fashion through about 7 or 8. After that, we should start to see drier weather, but still cooler, still windy as we start off the weekend, even though the sun will likely reappear by the afternoon as that activity pushes to the east. In terms of snowfall accumulation, it will be limited, as mentioned. There could be a bit of a very light dusting across the southeastern portion of the viewing area. It's to the northwest where a slightly heavier amount, up to an inch, could be seen. But it's the slick roadways that could come from that and the windy conditions that we have in place that could cause some hazardous driving very early on Saturday. But again, temperatures will warm up after we fall toward the upper 20s and low 30s overnight, with 28 in Charles City, 34 in Washington. We will be back into the 40s and 50s for most of us tomorrow. The coldest up in the north, closer to that area of low pressure, with 42 in Fayette, 49 in Washington, with partly cloudy skies, but the winds certainly taking a little bit off of those warmer temperatures. As we head toward next week, a storm system starts to develop off the Rockies and into the plains. Notice this area of low pressure develops and takes a somewhat familiar path. It's going to move to the northeast, strengthen as it does, and then enter northwest Iowa. If that sounds a little bit familiar, it looks a little bit like what took place today. Now, the storm system does look a little bit different in terms of its overall structure and dynamics. But that being said, the Storm Prediction Center already does have a good portion of the state included in an area for a risk of severe weather. We'll be watching that one very, very closely as it gets closer. Wind conditions could stick with us Saturday and Sunday, wrapping up the weekend as temperatures warm into the mid-60s again after a cooler day on Saturday. We'll stay in the 50s and 60s for the rest of the 9-day forecast as things turn quieter after early next week.
And we did just get an update from the emergency management team there in Johnson County. We now know that 2 people were hurt in Johnson County. Still no fatalities, thankfully. And the emergency management does believe 2 or 3 tornadoes touched down there in Johnson County.
That sounds right. I think we'll just have to wait and see how many total. Could be between about 6 to 10 total. Hard to say, but we'll be finding out over the weekend.
All right, Corey, thanks.
Another story that's developing is actually sports. We want to take another look at how the Iowa women are doing in their Final Four matchup against South Carolina. And we can tell you right now that, yeah, 67-64 Hawkeyes so far. Good news. We'll keep an eye on it, so stay with us. Today, the Iowa Supreme Court denied the appeal of the man who is convicted of killing Michelle Martinko. Martinko was found dead in her car in a mall parking lot with a number of stab wounds back in 1979. You may remember the case. Jerry Burns is serving life in prison for stabbing and killing the 18-year-old. She was last seen at Westdale Mall in Cedar Rapids, where she was shopping for a coat before investigators found her body. Now, the case went unsolved for nearly 40 years, but investigators were able to connect Burns to the case later through DNA evidence in 2018. Now, they got that evidence from a straw that Burns used at a Pizza Ranch restaurant. Burns argued that police violated his constitutional rights when they took that straw. The justices voted 5-2, with the majority saying police did follow the law. We want to remind you that when you do see news or know of news happening, give us a call on Newsline 9. The number is 319-365-9999. You can also send us news tips, pictures, and videos to newsroom@kcrg.com.
We have now passed the second final deadline for the Iowa legislature, and several controversial bills are advancing. Now, to make it through, a bill has to pass in either the Senate or the House, and then a committee in the opposite chamber to survive. Among those safe bills, the governor's parental rights bill. This bill would ban any explicit visual or written depictions in any instructional materials, including in library books. Democrats say this would ban Shakespeare. The bill would also ban teaching about gender identity in grades K through 6. Another bill would give harsher punishments for anyone dealing or selling the drug fentanyl. And another bill that survived, the texting and driving one. This would require drivers to use only phones in voice-activated or hands-free modes while driving. Also still alive, a bill that would relax Iowa's child labor laws, expanding which jobs younger teenagers can work and allowing them to work longer, later hours.
All right, want another update, don't you? Iowa women in the Final Four right now. The Hawkeyes leading 69-65. There's about 4.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Stay tuned to your local news source, KCRG TV 9.
We are looking at a fairly chilly start to the day on Saturday. There could be even a few snow flurries or light snow showers still by the time you get up. Temperatures will begin in the 30s. We'll be back to the upper 40s, maybe even to low 50s by the afternoon. Maybe some mid to upper 60s by Sunday on a windy day. We are looking for the chance for some more showers and storms, though, as we head toward Monday and Tuesday. Some of those on Tuesday could be strong again. We'll provide updates on that storm system throughout the weekend.
We're seeing a much quieter Vinton City camera right now.
Happy to see it.
Yes, we are.
Thanks for joining us tonight at 10.
And we hope you have a safe, calm weekend. We'll see you on Monday.